I'm Nancy Zook. I work at the County Youth Services Department, and while everyone needs to cut back, unfortunately that also means funding for services for at-risk kids. However, all of our state funding for youth development, special delinquency funding, and runaway and homeless funding has been cut in half, put into a competitive, I don't even want to call it a block grant, a competitive pool with 10 other vital services provided through the Department of Social Services related to foster care and CPS and the Healthy Families Home Visiting Program. Taking a cut is one thing, but the governor has also completely wiped out a structure that's been in place for 60 years through the youth bureaus, where we have provided a process for monitoring and evaluating the use of those funds. We also have a process by which there's local control through our youth board, where people who are in the community vote on ways in which those funds should be used to support programs for young people. 60 years worth of youth bureau services is knocked out of this budget. It would be up to the county exec, in our case, county administrator, or someone that he selects to put together a proposal for use of these funds. He doesn't have to listen to anybody. Now, I think in our county, probably, Joe Mariano would. But there's no guarantee, and it really smacks of political favoritism at the state level. So while we would not really want to have any funding cut, it's more important to us that there be a structure for use of those funds, and one in which we're not pitted against kids in foster care, and it's an impossible Solomon's kind of task. Those state funds that we get also leverage far more funds through the agencies that we provide funding to. So we're in the process of sort of calculating all of that, but it's an exponential number of funds that are leveraged for each of the dollars that we provide in state aid.
Yeah, this is an old strategy. It's been around at least since George Pataki, Governor Pataki, of block granting, saying we're going to put all these programs together, send a block grant, because we assume there's a lot of waste in all these things and inefficiencies, and certainly you can merge and do all kinds of things to save money. So we'll put in a block grant, we'll cut it in half. Governor Pataki did that about 20 times. And we'll have local groups sort of fight over that money. We push back a lot on a lot of this. 140 million?
Reduced to 35 million.
Wow, yeah.
So it's, and reduces a mechanism for ensuring proper use of those funds and an equitable distribution of those funds.
So you're going to get some details to me about great. I'm putting together letters to send to the speaker to let him know of my concerns and those of my constituents. So that's a very important one, obviously. Youth services, preventive programs. If we don't spend them a small amount of money up front, we spend more money on the back end, and it's much more painful events in the middle. People hurt, sometimes badly, in between. So preventive services and youth programs are just very, very critical. There's a lot of disinvesting in our youth in this budget, unfortunately.
Hey guys, she's ready. My name is Harmony Graves. I'm an Ithaca high school student. And this meeting was supposed to come to a governmental meeting. And
I'm sorry, what?
I'm supposed to come to a
governmental
governmental
meeting. You have an assignment to come to a governmental meeting.
So I decided to come to this one. And I find it very interesting. But all the while you're talking, the only thing that's crossing my mind is, what's the point? Okay, so I'm not quite sure who's benefiting from this at all, because to my understanding, it costs money to make money. So I'm kind of confused, and I don't really see what the benefit is. And because, as much as we talk about, budgets and the cutting and the spending, et cetera, and so forth, there's still nothing that we can do about it. As far as I'm concerned, you're going to get cut. So do we have town meetings, or do we have public discussions for the people so that they can feel better, or to make them angry? Because when they go home, I know that if I went home, I mean, not that I'm too much into budget cutting, even though I should be. But if I went home thinking about budget cutting, I would be more upset than when I came, because now I see more issues and more perspectives of others around me. So, but now I still don't understand what's the point in having the meeting now, because now instead of feeling better, I'm angrier because I don't have an understanding of what's going on. So the question that's gonna stay in my mind is, what's the point? And I'd like, if anybody can answer the question. If you deem necessary, or if you believe that there actually is an answer to that question.
Who would like to respond? What's the I'll be quiet for a bit. Ian's going to start. We can have multiple responses. What's the point, Ian?
I think one of the points is I'm really interested in what other people in the community are facing. It's real tough to find that out just by Googling and stuff like that, but that's a lot of how we find out about what's going on around town. And I think especially for a place like Ithaca, things like this are really helpful because there's so many creative people here, and you never really find out who you can work with to fix some of these problems, right? So, for example, if you hear like the Bookery, Buffalo Street Books is closing. Well, we could just say that's really unfortunate, and we learned about it here. But then some people shared that view with other people, and now they've come up with a way to save it. So that's one thing. Maybe we can come together and not just accept that things are going to be bad. Maybe we can fix it. So.
If I'm understanding you correctly, you're angry from being here in this meeting and hearing these things.
Oh no, I'm not angry.
Okay.
No, I just when I said that, I just wanted to bring up the issue or the fact. I mean, I'm not angry at all. I just was concerned or confused with what the point was.
So we're going to work a little bit harder to make you angry, because I think that's part of it. So then you can leave here and you can go talk to your friends and your family, and you can talk about what the situation is and what it is that you're going to do to go in a different direction.
I like her.
Yeah, sometimes, being angry is what got me into politics. My daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, was having nightmares about nuclear war. That was my entree into politics. I said, I got to go do something. This is not okay. I was angry about it. And you don't go out and kill somebody. You say, okay, what can I do that's constructive? How do I work with other people to try to push back on this issue? And that's what I did. And that was eventually what moved me into the political realm. So sometimes it starts with anger. And I'm not here to make people feel better. I hope, hopefully having discussion makes people feel better. Being informed is a good thing. I'm here to try to inform. And I also had a suggestion about a change in our tax system that I hope people will get to understand better and advocate for. So I'm hoping that I can help mobilize people to push back on the governor a bit and say, we need to continue this surcharge on the wealthiest 2% at a minimum. And perhaps think about doing some more as well. Are you okay on camera?
It's okay.
Okay, he's okay.
I have two questions related to the Marcellus shale drilling. On Sunday, I was at the SUNY Cortland debate, and I learned something that the compulsory integration law that we have in New York State, for example, they don't have it in Pennsylvania, and it was apparently introduced to the Congress in the state and passed with very few members, and it was presented to the Assembly and I think the Senate in a way that was misleading. What we were told is that it was presented with the old type of drilling where they would hit gas pockets. But in fact, the industry wanted this law for what would be coming up with the Marcellus drilling. And the type of drilling that they're now planning to use, where you have one pad and up to 16 wells, depends on this compulsory integration. So my question is, would you be willing to support or lead an effort to revisit how that law was passed and see whether, given the present state of affairs, the state government wants to get behind compulsory integration for New York or not?
Well, I know how it was passed. I saw it coming for years. I was in Elmira 15 years ago in public hearings about this, where they were trying to figure out how to do this when you have these vast plays under multiple properties. and you drill in one place, but you're taking the gas from someone else's property, how do you adequately compensate that other person who's losing the resources under their land, but not being paid for it? So it was a way to try to protect, initially, try to protect all those landowners whose mineral rights were being taken. But then evolved the whole issue of high-volume hydrofracking. But it seemed to still play, of course, because, when you go down, you're going out a mile in each direction with the drilling and going into multiple properties. So how do you compensate if this happens in New York? How do you compensate all those landowners except through compulsory integration? I actually am looking at the issue in terms of I'm getting some new information about the technology where they would say before, well, you can't help but go through multiple properties. The drilling goes out and you're inevitably going through multiple properties. Now they're saying perhaps the drill bits and the equipment that's used is so agile that they can actually figure out how to stop at a property line and go around it, and that therefore you could say to someone up top, if you don't want the drill bit to go under your property a mile down or a mile and a half down, maybe there's some way to say you don't have to be part of a compulsorily integrated unit. So it is an issue I'm looking at. It's a highly technical issue. It's tricky, but I am looking at it actually now.
But it would put a good monkey wrench into the process and slow it down a little bit if that law could be reversed. That's my point.
It would be an interesting development.
And the second question.
But I think, I'm wondering how many people, if there were really drilling happening and it was happening under their property, how many people would really opt out and say, I don't want those royalties, even though the drilling is happening all around me. I'm not going to allow it on my property. I wonder how many people would really opt out if it did happen. It's an interesting, the whole area is interesting, and I am going to...
May I respond?
And I'd be happy to take further input from you on it. Yes.
Maybe. I think everyone, as an individual, if a drill bit is coming under my land, I want the money. That's reasonable. But when you look at the map, and you see that it's here and here and here and here, and all of a sudden the area that I'm living in is not the area that I knew and not the area I want to have, then it's a different question. So the compulsory integration allows for wide-scale development very easily without people having to think about what's going on.
Well, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen without wide-scale development. The gas companies, they say, I'm just reading some more stuff on this. It says they want 70% coverage in order to get in order to make it worthwhile, they need that vast coverage. And so it's just inherent in the whole situation, from what I understand.
My second question has to do with whether or not you are, and whether you have other people supporting an effort to keep the executive order that Governor Patterson signed from not being undercut by the new administration.
Well, they re-upped it. Cuomo continued that executive order, which runs until, it essentially will run for most of this year, where it says the EIS, the SGIS will come out in June on gas drilling from the DEC. And most of you am I talking Greek? Are most of you here?